My last $37 sat in my bank account, mocking me every time I checked the app. The eviction notice was taped to my door, a glaring white paper against the peeling paint. So when I saw the ad night auditor needed immediate start, live-in position, remote location, generous compensation, I didn't think twice. Remote location meant the middle of nowhere. Generous compensation usually meant we pay well, because no sane person would take this job. But being sane wasn't a luxury I could afford anymore. I was flat out desperate, and this was my last shot. The inn on Blackwood Road was exactly as creepy as I'd pictured. A huge moss-covered stone building, surrounded by old pine trees that scraped against the eaves like bony fingers. It looked like something from a forgotten postcard, not a place in my pathetic, last-ditch life. Mrs. Gable, the manager, was waiting for me in the lobby. Her face presented a map of sharp lines and deep wrinkles, her eyes like cold gray stones that seemed to stare right through me. She didn't offer a handshake, merely presenting a thick, yellowed envelope and stating, "Your duties, boy. Read them, learn them, follow them, for your very life depends on it." The words, rough like sandpaper, were supposed to be a warning. All I felt, however, was a tired, bitter laugh bubbling up inside me, as the thought that my very life depended on this seemed a pathetic joke. My life was already barely hanging on, and this was just another Tuesday. "Right," I mumbled, the word tasting like dust, attempting to act like I didn't care. She merely grunted, then shuffled off into a dark hallway, swallowed by the shadows, leaving me completely alone in the huge lobby, where the only sound was the loud, mocking tick-tock of a grandfather clock that hadn't seen a working, swingy thing in ages. Broken, I thought, but the sound kept going. Inside the envelope, a single, heavy piece of old paper, almost crumbly, lay waiting its title, written in fancy, unsettling letters, declaring, "The Blackwood Inn Night Auditor's Protocol for your continued employment and well-being." My eyes scanned the first few lines, and a cold knot formed in my stomach. This wasn't just a list of chores. It was something else entirely. The first instruction concerned check-in, stating I couldn't unlock the main lobby doors for anyone after 10 p.m., regardless of how they knocked, what they begged, or what strange voice they might use. I frowned, finding that rule about not unlocking the doors immediately strange, and wondered what kind of hotel would prevent guests from entering. My gut tightened, but I kept reading because I desperately needed this job. The paper indicated a guest would always check in at exactly 10:17 p.m., would not talk, and I was not to ask for ID or money. I simply had to hand them key number 13, and I absolutely couldn't look them in the eye. My eyebrows shot up as I marveled at the bizarre details. Exactly 10:17 p.m., silent guest, handing over a key without even a name. The "don't look them in the eye" part sent a shiver down my spine, confirming this was not a prank, but undeniably real. My heart picked up its pace, a frantic drum against my ribs. Once they had the key, I was supposed to lock the office door from the inside until 10:20 p.m., just to be safe. "Just to be safe," I muttered, the words tasting bitter. I found myself questioning what I needed to be safe from, and who they might be. The idea that I might need to barricade myself in a tiny office, even for 3 minutes, was terrifying, and my hands were suddenly clammy. As this wasn't a hotel, but rather a trap, yet I had no choice. I slumped further into the worn leather chair, my phone still showing no service, confirming the isolation was absolute. Staring at the clock, I then whispered, "This is stupid," trying to trick myself that it was just some kind of local joke. Exactly at 10:17 p.m., the old brass bell on the counter gave a single sharp ding. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Standing on the other side of the counter was a shape, tall and unbelievably skinny, wearing a long, dark coat that seemed to soak up the dim lobby light. They had no clear face, just a blurry, blank space, like looking through frosted glass. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't a guest, but a shadow wearing clothes. All my ideas about it being a joke vanished, and my hands felt clammy. My fingers, strangely numb, fumbled for key number 13. The metal felt unnaturally cold, a sharp chill that spread up my arm. As the figure reached out, their hand brushed mine. It wasn't cold, but felt like dry ice, leaving a tingly. burning feeling that stayed with me even after they smoothly took the key. They gave a tiny nod, then turned and simply melted into the dark of the staircase. I didn't think. It just reacted, practically diving for the office door, slamming it shut and fumbling for the lock. The click echoed in the sudden silence as I leaned against the door, my heart pounding against my ribs like crazy. My breath came in ragged gasps, and I tried to comprehend what the hell that was as I closed my eyes, attempting to tell myself it was a hallucination, exhaustion, anything but real. The grandfather clock chimed 10:20, and my first guest had completed their check-in, leaving me shaken but alive. My eyes shot open, the lobby lamp being the only real thing in the room. I remembered the next line on the paper concerning the lobby lamp, which stated it must stay on all night because its light pushes things away. If it flickered or got dim, I had to change the bulb right away from the supply under the counter. I couldn't use my phone's flashlight because they like the dark. I kept my eyes glued to the lamp, its single bulb a lonely light in the huge, dark lobby, humming faintly as a weak, comforting sound. They like the dark. That terrifying thought echoed in my mind, making me wonder how many were there and what they were, but my mind tried not to think about it. Then my eyes found the next rule, which was about room 13. Absolute no-go, the paper stated. Under no circumstances should I go near, listen at, or go into room 13. I wasn't to pick up anything that fell from under its door, as it wasn't mine. Sounds from room 13 were just echoes, and I had to ignore them. But if they got too much, I was to put the provided headphones on and play the preloaded static noise. Around midnight, a faint, steady scratching started from somewhere upstairs, soft at first, like fingernails on wood. But it got louder and louder, more determined. My skin crawled as it sounded like it was right above me, from room 13. "Just the house settling," I whispered, trying to trick myself by thinking it was old wood, mice. But the sound wasn't random. It had a sickening beat. It got worse, becoming a wild, desperate gouging sound, with a low, deep moan that sent shivers down my spine. This wasn't old wood or mice. This was pain, or something pretending to be in pain, causing my hands to clench into fists. Echoes. I desperately reminded myself of the rule. But this was undeniably real, and room 13 was clearly involved. I stumbled, almost knocking over my chair, to find the headphones under the counter. They were big, old, and smelled a bit like mold. As soon as I put them on, a blast of pure static noise filled my ears. A roaring white wall that thankfully drowned out the awful sounds. The immediate relief was huge, almost making me dizzy, but it was quickly replaced by a deep feeling of wrongness, leading me to wonder what kind of hotel needed headphones for its night person to block out guest noises. Oh, and why I hadn't just left. "Because you have nowhere else to go, dummy," a voice sneered in my head. I woke up on the lobby couch, having fallen into an exhausted sleep with the headphones still on. The static buzzing softly against my ears. The sun was barely up, casting a weak light through the dirty windows. The quiet, now that the static was gone, was total, heavy, almost smothering. My head hurt, and I tasted dust. My eyes landed back on the list. The next rule was about morning cleanup. 6 a.m., I remembered. Get the trash bin from in front of room 13. It would be outside the door. I was not to look inside the bin. I was not to touch what was in it. I had to empty it into the incinerator in the backyard right away. If the bin wasn't there, or if it was tipped over, I was not to look around, but instead go to the laundry room in the basement and lock myself in, then wait until noon. A new wave of nausea hit me as 6 a.m. got closer. The thought of whatever was in that bin, my mind, messed up by no sleep and growing fear, was imagining unspeakable things. Yet I had to do it. The need for the job, the only job, was a heavy weight pushing me forward. I forced myself to the stairs, my eyes jumping nervously around the silent hallways. The inn felt different in the daylight, somehow heavier, older, almost angry that I was there. There it was, a small metal trash bin, sitting innocently outside room 13. It had a few faint reddish-brown smudges on its side. I tried not to think about what they were, nor tried to breathe too deep. I grabbed the handle. It was wet and warm, and I almost dropped it. Gagging, my stomach churned. The stuff inside the bin shifted, making a soft, squishy sound, and I could smell something metallic like old blood, mixed with a faint, sweet, sickening odor I couldn't place. I fought the urge to look. Don't look inside, I reminded myself, recalling the rule. My heart was pounding like crazy, and I practically ran down the back stairs out the back door towards the incinerator. The air was cold, but sweat dripped down my forehead, stinging my eyes. As I dumped the stuff, I squeezed my eyes shut, but I couldn't completely avoid it. A small, dark, lumpy mass slid out, and I caught a glimpse of something like tangled. Rough hair and a flash of white, like a broken bone piece. I slammed the incinerator door shut and lit the gas, watching the bad-smelling smoke go up into the sky, feeling like I was going to throw up. I hadn't looked, not really, not straight on. But the image was stuck in my mind, and I'd seen enough to know this wasn't animal remains. That night, after the silent guest had checked in, and the scratching from room 13 started its awful beat again, I needed to use the bathroom, which was on the second floor. I sprinted up the grand staircase, my eyes glued to the steps, super aware of every creak and groan the old house made. Then, halfway up, my eyes caught the next instruction on the paper, now crinkled from my nervous handling. It was about the grand staircase. Never stop on the grand staircase, I recalled, and never look down into the open space of the stairs from the second-floor landing. If I heard singing from downstairs when I was on the second floor, I had to go straight to the third floor, and I couldn't stop until I reached my assigned bedroom. As I reached the landing, a faint, beautiful hum started from the lobby downstairs. It was pretty, spooky, and deeply, terribly sad. My feet froze. A sudden dumb thought made me consider perhaps it was just someone listening to music. A desperate human wish for things to be normal. Curiosity, or maybe a stupid urge to understand, fought with my terror. Never look down into the open space of the stairs, the rule screamed in my mind. I crept closer to the railing, wanting just a peek. The humming got louder, joined by a soft, steady swaying sound, like a heavy pendulum. I leaned over the railing just a little. The lobby below wasn't dim anymore. It was bathed in a horrible, pulsing red light coming from the grandfather clock. Hanging there, tied by its neck from the top of the clock, slowly swinging back and forth, was a body. Its face was blurred and unclear, like the guest, but I could see the long, dark coat. Key number 13 hung from its hand, clinking softly against its hip with each awful swing. Its throat was stretched out, pulsing faintly as if it was singing the song I heard. And the swinging figure, its pulsing throat, the haunting singing, all were burned into my mind. A choked scream ripped from my throat. I stumbled backward, scrambling away from the railing, my heart seizing in my chest. I fell, scraping my hands raw on the dusty floorboards, and struggled up the last few steps, ignoring the burning pain in my knee. I didn't stop until I burst into my tiny assigned bedroom, slamming and locking the door with shaking hands. I jammed the headphones on, the static a desperate shield against the horror, but no static could drown out the image burned into my mind. It wasn't an echo, but a damn curse. My whole body shook uncontrollably, and I curled up in a ball on the floor, gagging on nothing as I desperately needed to get out. I needed to get out. I needed to get out. I didn't sleep a wink that night. The morning came, a painful gray light, but I couldn't move. I couldn't face the incinerator or anything else. The inn felt like a cage, shrinking around me, every shadow a possible threat. My mind was a mess of fear and hopelessness. There was one last section on the crumpled paper, the one I had desperately avoided reading. It was about breach protocol. If any rule was knowingly or unknowingly broken, I remembered reading. I had to go right away to the cellar access door in the kitchen. I couldn't use the main stairs. They weren't safe anymore. Once in the cellar, I had to find the hidden spot behind the biggest wine barrel. There, I would find a single, plain bell. The instruction was clear. Ring it once, then wait. I couldn't try to leave the cellar until a new instruction sheet appeared at my feet. I'd broken a rule, a big one. I had looked, had seen it, and the singing from the staircase confirmed that my life depended on it. My life, which was rapidly becoming not worth living if this was what it meant. A desperate urge to leave overwhelmed me, and I dragged myself out of bed, every muscle screaming. I needed to leave. Forget the bell, forget the rules, forget the money. I just had to get out. I crept to the main lobby doors. The heavy locks were still in place. I pulled, pushed, kicked, my voice raw from yelling. Nothing. They were stuck shut, just like the first rule said. I realized then that I was truly trapped. Panic, raw animal panic, surged through me. My lungs burned as I tried to breathe. The cellar and the bell, were they a way out, or just another terrible thing? My mind screamed against it, but the only other choice was facing whatever haunted this place. Defenseless, without any guidance. I stumbled towards the kitchen, avoiding the grand staircase. The grandfather clock in the lobby was silent, dark, a scary shadow. The cellar door was old wood, with a rusty lock. I pulled it open, and the scent of sweet, sick earth wafted up as a set of steep, dark steps went down into earthy blackness. This smell, like rich dirt and something sickly sweet, was familiar from the incinerator. I went down carefully, my phone's flashlight a weak beam against the total darkness. My hand found a rough, cold wall, and there it was, the biggest wine barrel. Behind it, a hidden panel, just barely visible. I pulled it open. Inside, resting on a soft, dark cloth, was a single, small, tarnished silver bell. No handle, just a smooth, cold dome. As my fingers closed around it, I felt a faint shake, a pulse, as if the bell itself was alive. A final, desperate hope sparked inside me, crazy but real. Maybe it was a call for help. I lifted it, and then, with a shaking hand, I rang it. The sound was shockingly loud in the small space, a deep, ringing tone that shook the floor, shook my very bones. It didn't sound like a bell. It sounded like a single, huge heartbeat. The darkness around me got thicker, pressing in, heavy and alive. The sick, sweet smell became overpowering, almost choking me. Then I heard it. A faint, wet, slithering sound from the very back of the cellar, followed by a soft, steady thump, 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 getting louder, closer. My flashlight beam danced wildly, showing nothing but shadows. The air got freezing cold, and I felt a presence, huge and unbelievably close, even though I couldn't see anything. The thumping was right in front of me now, so close I could feel the air moving against my face. A vast, dark shape, barely visible, seemed to block out the weak light from the cellar entrance above me. The silence from the thing was more terrifying than any sound. I stood frozen, the bell still in my hand, my body stiff with terror. I didn't dare look down, yet I knew with unsettling certainty exactly what it was. A new instruction sheet. And I knew, with absolute, terrifying certainty, that I would never check out of the Blackwood Inn. The real horror wasn't what I would read next. But knowing there was no end to the rules, no end to the darkness, and no way out for me,